Sales scripts don't work anymore. I don't know if it's a surprising fact or not, but truthfully, everything you've been taught about sales, from frameworks to scripting to practicing your objection handling, learning 12 different closing tactics, it's all bullshit. You can't use a Jedi mind trick to convince somebody to buy something from you at the end of the call. It doesn't work that way, right? Sales has changed so much, and it's going to be changing going into 2025. Realistically, what you know about sales and what it was back in 2020, 2021, 2022, which is really all the stuff that people are still teaching you now, is all outdated. My name is JJ Hernandez. If you don't know who I am, I've worked with Alex Ramosi. I manage Iman Gaidzi's sales team. What I want to do today is break down to you how sales has changed and where it's going in 2025 and what you can expect going forward. Let's start with scripts. Why do scripts not work? It's kind of obvious if you think about it, right? When you're having a conversation with somebody, what makes the best conversations in the world feel great or feel like the best conversation? Presence, communication, how present you feel during that conversation is the most important thing, right? In social settings, in business settings, in any setting. If you're present and you're having a true, genuine conversation, it feels real, right? And so dating and sales are very, very similar, right? There's only really 3 outcomes that can really happen during a date, which is you take the person home, you never speak to them again, or you continue the conversation and maybe rendezvous later, right? Same thing with a sales call. It's 2 people, not on a date, but you're on a sales conversation, right? You're feeling out each other, understanding what their intention is, what they want, blah. And there's really only 3 outcomes, right? You close the deal, you don't, or you continue the conversation, maybe close them later. So the biggest thing to understand, if you're still sticking to a script, I promise you that's costing you more money than it is making you money. Detach from it. Understand that. Number 2, frameworks. You went from a script to a framework, you think it's a little more advanced, and it's great. Frameworks are great, don't get me wrong. I think fundamentally, you do need to understand the entire process of a sales conversation. There has to be some type of frame during that conversation, right? To make sure you know where you're going, where the conversation is going, and how to end it, how to close it, whatever you want to say, right? It's very, very important. But what I will say is, again, when you resort to scripts, to frameworks, you become stuck and tied to that. And so when you get a little confused and you get a little lost, you get a little uncomfortable, you resort to just bad habits. You go back to the framework, you go back to the questioning, you go back to questions you feel comfortable with, you go back to saying statements, whatever it is, those things do not work, right? At the end of the day, you try to convince somebody through the words that you're saying and telling them that this is the right decision and why they're this and why they're that. No matter what you can say, I promise you, if it comes from you, it doesn't mean shit. If it comes from them, it means absolutely everything. So understand that you have to ask more questions and give less statements. That's the biggest thing going forward. Into 2025, I promise you, if you're talking 40, 50% of the time, automatically just assume you lost the sale at that point. It just does not work that way. You can't convince somebody by just talking their ear off. It doesn't work. But objection handling. People think that you have to master this stuff to be able to get somebody over the line at the end of the call. In 2025, if you sell with authenticity, if you're genuine, and you focus on the energy you bring to that call, I promise you, you'll have objectionless closes for the entirety of the year. Maybe that's a little exaggerated, but what the only 2 options should really look like is, hey, how can I break this down? Or you saying, hey, it's not really a good fit. Maybe we should talk again in the future, or maybe we should revisit this conversation in the future, right? That's really what sales will transfer into. It's going to be complete authenticity and transparency. So 3, 4 things that you have to know and understand that you were taught to in the past that just won't work anymore going forward. Now, what you can expect is very, very different. The new way of selling is without a script. You're having a genuine conversation. You're making a connection with the prospect and you're showing them that you care and you understand their situation better than anybody else can. You understand their situation better than they understand it, right? So if you show them the pain and goals that they don't realize that they have, then at that point, they're going to be like, dude, holy cow. They're almost going to feel indebted to you, right? Where it's just like, if JJ sees this and I don't, and he's recommending that I do this, then he obviously knows something that I don't see. And that transference of conviction, transference of belief is what gets them over the line, right? So going forward, it's not about keeping your cards close to your chest. It's about revealing everything and making sure that what their expectation of the call was initially is met at the end of the conversation. So all of these, hey, this is a free consulting call, or hey, this is a job interview for a role, and then you're selling them something on the back end, I promise you guys, it's just not going to work anymore. You're better off letting them know at least a range of your pricing. You're better off letting them know, even I've been on offers where as a sales director, I literally tell them announce the price before the call. And if they can't come because they don't feel comfortable about spending that money or whatever it is, then cool, you save yourself the time. The intention of going into 2025, what sales should really look like is you're taking shorter conversations, way less calls, and you're making more money. How? Because when you're talking less and asking more questions, obviously your prospect is talking. 2, less conversations, because you're not going to jump on with somebody who isn't qualified, who isn't considered ready, who doesn't have any intention to jump on a sales call. How many times have you been on a sales call and you're exerting all this energy to try to convince somebody to do something that they think they want to do, but you don't know how to get them over the line because they're actually just considering doing this. They don't actually want to do this. They don't actually feel like they need to do this. And even if you put aside the bad, poor sales tactics you were using, and maybe you didn't do a great job closing the deal, sure, that's fine. But at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't have any intent or desire and they're on a 1 out of 10 on that buying scale, realistically, they probably shouldn't be on that call. Give them more information, bring them back when they're actually really considering this as something they really want to invest money into, and then continue that conversation. And more money, of course, that's the obvious part, right? You're closing more deals, you're making more money. In turn, what comes from this and what it should really look like, and I know sales has a bad rep as an industry and people just look at it as something sleazy or wrong, whatever you want to say. You look at Andy Elliott and you think, oh my God, it's forceful, it's manipulative. That's not what sales is. No, I don't think. I know going into 2025, the perception of sales is going to change. What you're focusing on in 2025 is the level of communication and how well you can communicate whatever you're selling, whatever you're doing, whatever you're offering to your prospect on the other side so they understand that you understand them the best. The byproduct of that, as you get better at sales, what starts to happen is how you are on your sales calls or how you are off your sales calls. And the same thing vice versa. And so you'll apply the tactics and methods and things that you do and the way you communicate in your sales calls outside of your calls. And actually, believe it or not, the best way to improve is actually using the tactics like slowing down your cadence, pausing, awareness, listening. You apply those things outside of your calls to then bring them into your calls. I promise you, if some of you are watching this and you probably feel like outside of sales, you're a certain way, and then on calls, you're a certain way, and it feels like you have to put on this mask, you have to act a certain way, get rid of that. That's just not going to work going forward. I promise you, it should not feel like a mental burden to be on these sales calls. It should not exert that much energy for you to be on these sales calls. And sales does do that because people are pouring their emotion and thoughts and all of their pain and desires and all these things on you. It's a very, very emotionally draining position. And if you can endure that, and if you're not the person that you need to be for that person on the other side, then I promise you this will be a drag of a role for you. This will be a drag of a job. So going into 2025, protect your energy. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people don't understand what that means or realize how important that is. But the reason why you feel so burnt out, beat down, and low energy is because you're taking the energy from that prospect. Also, you're probably barely listening on top of that, right? Because you're really following a framework or a script, you're probably not listening. But regardless, you're giving this energy to the prospect and getting no result. Versus if you only talk to people who are qualified, you do your due diligence prior, and you take the time to actually listen to somebody and understand their situation, you will exert that energy, but you at least get the result. But you also will have control over who you're speaking to and choosing who you want to talk to and when you don't want to talk to them. That's the biggest thing. If you want to learn how to sell without a script, if you want to understand how to master your energy, if you want to understand how to utilize energy, intuition, and improve your communication in 2025, click the link in the description. We have a community. It's absolutely free. Join if you want to. I have coaching calls where I'll go over scriptless selling, internal mastery, communication skills, just so number one, you can be a better communicator, but also make more money and help more people.